Hi, I'm Ricky Pryor, editor of the Richmond Register, and you're watching this week's Priority Report. My special guest is Wes Browne, so stay tuned.
The Priority Report is brought to you by Cumberland Valley National Bank. Trusted for banking, known for caring. Visit them at cvnb.com. Chenault Vineyards, a place to create beautiful experiences. Visit them online at chenaultvineyards.com. Shelter Insurance, Ashley Kovaleski. Give her a call, 859-624-0883, located 112 Big Hill Avenue in Richmond. Whitaker Bank, uniquely Kentucky. And kymedia.net.
Welcome back. I'm Ricky Pryor, and this is Wes Browne.
Hello.
If you haven't seen a previous Priority Report with Wes, he's here to talk about the alcohol petition. I encourage you to go back and watch the other one that kind of gives some background. But Wes, tell us a little bit, just briefly, on the background of this alcohol petition that was circulating in Madison County recently.
It was filed in August of 2022, August 7th. It was due January 31st. The number of signatures required was based on the general election that was held in November. That signature amount required was 7,590. We turned in 11,500 and some change, knowing, as always is the case in these matters, that you're going to have signatures that don't count. You're going to have duplicates. You're going to have folks who signed your petition who aren't registered. You're going to have folks who not only, well, they're registered, but they're registered in, Callaway County or whatever. So you're going to lose some signatures. By our math, we could lose a little over 34% of our signatures and still be on the ballot. We got 7,620 signatures according to the Madison County Clerk's Office. That's 30 above what was required. This will appear on the ballot on May 16th. 2023, everywhere in Madison County. That's out in the county, that's in the city of Berea, that's in the city of Richmond. Every voter who goes to the polls in Madison County, anywhere, will see this on their ballot, and it's a simple yes/no. Do you want to allow alcohol sales in Madison County?
And that's exactly how it's going to appear on the ballot.
I mean, give or take a word.
Okay.
But close to that, yeah.
And that's really important because, look for that. It's going to probably be, right up underneath all of your legislators and stuff that you're going to be voting for. And like you said, yes or no. So, and it's a primary, so.
One of the reasons we did the primary is because there's no additional expense.
Mm-hmm.
If you put the wet-dry election on a primary or general election date, it just goes with the rest of it, so there's no additional money spent to have to do it. So it also helps because, people show up. If otherwise you put it out and that's the only thing on the ballot, it's literally just, people going out just to vote for that one thing, which is a little bit, I don't know, feels a little wasteful to me. So we're gonna see how it goes. As I understand it, the last 20 wet-dry elections held in Kentucky, 18 have gone wet.
Wow.
Communities similar to Madison County typically go wet, so we're very optimistic about it. But the thing is, it's a sort of a specialized election. It's a primary. There's not a whole lot on there, so we need people to show up. You can't stay home. It's gonna do a lot for Madison County to pass this, but we've got to pass it. So we don't want people to be complacent and think, okay, we made it, it's done. It's not, as we say, we're just halfway there. The second half is passing it, but we feel really good about it. We're not going to rest. We're going to keep going on this issue, but we think it'll pass.
That's excellent. Now, this was a challenge all the way through.
It was.
I don't know if anybody's kept up with it, but there were a lot of challenges that you and other local businesses had to overcome to even kind of get this petition out and started and all the way to getting filed.
So what happened initially was there were two other precincts out in the county that took up petitions and actually voted wet.
Northern Madison County, right?
Both in northern Madison County. One up mostly Boone's Trace, that area, and the other one near where 627 and 75 meet. Those precincts had petitions, voted wet, and the ABC said, as we read the law, county precincts cannot vote wet. City precincts can, but county precincts cannot. I was actually in the midst of trying to do a petition for another precinct because we have Apollo Pizza up there, and that location is not doing as well as our other locations, and a big reason why is because it's in a dry area. So we were interested in being able to sell beer and wine there. I dropped that petition essentially on the spot when I found out that the ABC wasn't going to issue the licenses. And I kind of thought about it for 4 or 5 days. I really don't remember how long anymore. And I don't want to say on a lark, but a little bit of impulsiveness, I thought, I'm just going to try and see if we can get the whole county wet. I found out pretty quickly how hard it is to get that many signatures. I got quite a few without help, and I was using Facebook and different things, and it was online. But I was getting a lot. That was when we got a lot of those duplicates were coming in. The people who were interested, they were very enthusiastic about it, and they kept signing it over and over again. And then finally, talked to some folks who were interested in the issue, and we looked at each other and we thought, well, we're here. It's filed in. Let's really push. So we brought in a company that could target specific individuals who we know are registered voters in Madison County. Because before that, it was just a shotgun approach. I was just asking anybody, and the results reflected that. I was getting lower quality signatures on average. When this company came in, suddenly a very high percentage of the signatures were good signatures because they knew who they were going to. And it was necessary. I mean, you saw we just barely got across the line.
Yeah, 30 signatures.
Yeah, so it was ultimately money well spent. And one of the things people would say is, why are you spending all this money on this? And my response always is, why do we have to? Why is it up to private citizens to go into their own pockets to make something like this happen? I don't love the law as it's written, and I do not like that we had to do this way, but that was the only avenue to do it. So, and that's what's kept Madison County back for so long, is we had a lot of half measures. Richmond went wet precinct by precinct. There were times when you had to go to Big Hill Avenue and you couldn't get anywhere else. For people who don't know, the reason why Outback seems like it's sort of in the middle of nothing is because that was a little wet area, and the other side of the bypass was dry. Where Richmond Center and all that stuff, all that part of the bypass, it was all dry. So Outback located there because that was the closest they could get to I-75.
Wow.
And that was, I was living in Madison County back when that was the way, and it has slowly gone wet precinct by precinct. Berea went moist. The problem there is there was less urgency to take the whole county wet. And even though it's been really detrimental to the county to be partially dry, there wasn't as much interest from the community at large because we sort of had things we could do. But, you have people who are driving 40 miles round trip to buy a bottle of wine in Madison County. How does that make sense? Statistically, go to Google. I promise. Go to Google and Google this. DUI statistics and DUI wrecks tend to be higher in dry areas. People go from dry areas to wet areas. They do two things. They binge drink because they can't get it, so when they go out they run wild.
Get more.
Or they're drinking, they go out for more, they drive a long distance, they're drinking on the way back. So you actually have DUI drivers on the road longer when you are in a dry area. The statistics back that up. The other one that's interesting is meth production is higher in dry areas. And you can figure that out for yourself, but when there's not one thing, people look for something else. So those are all out there. This idea that, trying to take the county wet is like a heathen movement. I think it's the opposite. I think we're going to have a safer, more prosperous county. One of the big things in Berea, and I don't own Kroger. I hope this ultimately is the way it plays out. But their development director said that Kroger walked away when they found out Berea was moist because anymore they're not going to build where they can't sell beer and wine. They want to have that as part of their model. And folks will say, well, there are places in dry areas. When were those built?
Yeah.
They've stopped now.
Well, and how many people live there, too?
Yeah. Well, and the interesting thing is I actually did some research on that, too. Some folks said, oh, it's Berea. It's not that Berea can't get it because it's not wet. It's the population. Moorhead, Mount Sterling, and I think it's Corbin have half the population in their cities as Berea. They have Walmart and Kroger both and all those places. Well, someone said, oh, but that Berea is too close to Richmond, that's why. Mount Sterling to Winchester is the same distance. Mount Sterling and Winchester both have Walmart and Kroger both. Their combined population is more than 20,000 less than Berea and Richmond. It's the alcohol sales. These big grocery chains rely on that for part of their bottom line. And again, I think part of this may be that Kroger was saying to Berea, get your act together and we'll show up. If they open hoping later that it'll change, I think it's a little less likely that there's that motivation. So they may have been trying to motivate the county. I also know that there is a lease ready to go in northern Madison County for a smaller grocery up off between the 95 and the 97 as a proposed location. Deli counter, meat counter. It was described to me this way: like an IGA, but not an IGA. It's not going to be branded as an IGA, but it's similar to an IGA. So I live up that way, so I'm looking forward to that. But another thing that a lot of people don't know about, and I'd be glad to talk about here while we have a moment.
Please do.
Precincts in places like Berea that say, look, we don't want to be wet, they can actually vote back dry. That can be done. The way this county-wide works is it takes the whole county wet. It overrides everything.
So the ABC, but just going back, so
Yes,
the
ma'am.
ABC said even though county precincts individual precincts were trying to go wet, the ABC said no, but the ABC will allow someone to go back dry. Individual county precincts.
No, the distinction there is city versus county.
Gotcha.
City
Okay.
precincts can vote on their own, county precincts can't.
Okay, I see.
Should that be the way the law is interpreted? I don't love it. I'd love to see the legislature maybe look at that because the whole thing to me is about fairness. Where you live in a county shouldn't determine something this big.
I don't have rights.
Yeah. So if you're a county resident and you wish your precinct was wet, you can't do it. If you live in the city, guess what? You can do it.
Yeah.
Why? It's arbitrary in my mind, but we just said, okay, enough's enough. Let's try and take the whole county, and that's what we've done, and that's hopefully what we're going to finish doing. But my
Yes, I interrupted
point
you.
about, no, it's no big deal, but Berea, if there are some precincts in the city who feel like, listen, this is how we want to be, they're welcome to do it. And if it's really about everyone having a choice and every location having their own choice. All the switches were flipped one way that couldn't be flipped the other way. Now they can be flipped the other way, and you're going to get a more accurate composition of what people actually want in different areas once we do this.
Right. It's almost kind of like a mass reset.
Yes.
And then everybody can actually go in and individualize it where they want to.
Well, and I think we covered this probably last time I was here, but and I learned more about it. So I think there were two things during the course of all this that I thought were one way that as we went along, I learned were not. I didn't have it exactly right, and I talked to folks and I came to understand it.
It's so complicated. I keep interrupting you, but just talking to you and following this story, I am amazed at how complicated the alcohol and like petition laws and all of that. It's a very complicated matter. So I can see where
it's tremendously complicated, and the funny thing is at the end of it, I know it all so well. I kind of wish I could do it again, because if I could do this again, I figured it all. I figured out how everything works. But
so what did you learn?
after Prohibition, communities in Kentucky did take a vote. Madison County voted dry.
Mm-hmm.
My initial belief was actually that everywhere was dry and had to vote wet, but it turns out that's not the case. Everywhere did vote one way or the other, and Madison County went dry after Prohibition. I'm trying to, oh gosh, it's a newsman actually messaged our Facebook page and said, I want to correct you on something. And he sent it, and I said, thank you, I'm glad you corrected me, and I will go forward and get that right.
Thank you, unknown newsman.
Oh gosh, if I could go on my phone and tell you who it was, but I don't think we want to do that in the middle of this. But that was one of the things that I learned through the course of this, is how that functioned. There has not been a countywide vote since then. I believe that vote was taken in, was it 1933?
About have to be.
So I'm to the point where I never
Wow.
say 100% I know on everything.
So, and
but
that's just the county, like everyone in the county being
the whole,
included.
yes, the whole,
Wow.
countywide.
Not
That's it.
since the
And
1930s.
I haven't mentioned this to you, but I think it was Allen County. A fella from Allen County, and I don't even remember his role, and quite frankly, I can't even remember his name at the moment, but he called me, and he watched our original interview, and he used that as a how-to onto how to do his petition. They got their signatures, and they're going to hold an election. He's a little sketchier on whether or not he thinks it'll pass there, because it's a very close issue. I think it's Allen County. It could be another county. I really don't remember. But anyway, he said that basically our conversations step by step took it through, and he called me just to clarify things. And so, and he filed it, and away
That's
they go.
amazing.
It was interesting.
Oh, I'm so glad you told me that.
Yeah, we didn't set out to do a how-to video, but we sort of did.
But like I said, I know I keep hammering back to that, but I mean, it is so, the topic is so complicated, and I'm so glad that it's, you worked with your company that you did to kind of promote it and get it out there, and that people have kind of seen this in real time and had a lot of discussions. A lot of discussions on the Madison County Alcohol Vote Facebook page with the stories up underneath our stories. I've had people calling me at the Richmond Register trying to fact check and ask questions. But I mean, it really has kind of stirred this, but it's also kind of amazing because everybody is trying to fact check and figure out what how the actual rules go, and what can be done and what can't be done, and it just blows my mind. How anyone gets a petition done like this is amazing, just to get it not just started but completed. It
was 6 long months of this and a couple of really tense weeks. It took 10 days to count. It was a nervous 10 days. It really was, and it was exciting to finally find out that it made it. But it was a nervous time. I'm glad that part's over, and I certainly am hoping it passes, because I don't want to do that again. Right.
Well, and you and I had a conversation of like how you have to like start over again too. That if it hadn't made it to the ballot, right?
Yes, and it's interesting because you talked about how confusing it is. I've gone back and forth with city and county officials, and they'll say, I think it's this way, and I'll say, I think it's this way, and sometimes I'm right and sometimes they were right. And we've sort of traded. Right after
just a learning experience for everyone.
Right after I filed it, I got contact from Berea, and from someone I won't specifically name, but they said, we think Berea will stay dry, and I said, I believe you will go wet. And they sent me a statute, and I said to them, I know how that statute reads, and I know it sounds like you would stay dry, but I've looked at the law on it, and you would go wet. And there was about a 30-minute pause, and I was on vacation. I was literally on a pontoon boat texting with another attorney, and he messaged me back and said, all right, you're right. And that was that, and I didn't hear from him, and I saw him again later, and he said, I looked into it other places. There were some questions about what the deadline was for the signatures. It wound up being sooner than what I thought it was. We had to rush it in. And then there was the question of, can we turn around and do another petition immediately? And I said, yes, we can. A county official said, no, you have to wait 3 years. We're going through our statute books, and that county official is saying, I don't see it. I said, it's this statute. He's like, no, it's here. No, it's here. Okay, you're right. He looks at it. What it says is you have to wait 3 years between elections. You can petition over and over again. And it makes sense if you think about it, because if you could only petition every 3 years, if someone wanted to keep a county dry, they could file a petition, do a lousy job on purpose, and block everyone out. So that really wouldn't work. So that is not the restriction. But if this one doesn't go, it's 2026 before we can do this again.
So that's if it doesn't pass, right?
Yes, correct.
So if what's on the ballot, if it does not pass, if people do not choose to go wet or dry, that's it until 2026, right?
And if we pass it and someone says, oh, we want to try and take the whole county back dry, which as hard as this is, I do not see that happening, but they would have to wait 3 years to put it back on the ballot. They could try to go back dry. And here's the other weird thing.
Well, that's an interesting thing to note, because if the Kroger situation is out there and they're kind of looking for areas that are switching and stuff, you do have kind of that 3-year window where like potential businesses will know that at least the alcohol wet dry laws will remain in place for a little bit. So
one of the interesting things that came up too, it was actually another attorney raised it on Facebook, which is, seems to be where these things are discussed for whatever reason. People don't get in a lot of political discussions on Instagram.
It's always Facebook.
Twitter, it's national politics. It's not local politics. Facebook seems to be the home for local politics. But one attorney said, if we vote dry, does the whole county go back dry? No.
Right.
It would not override it. The places that have voted on their own to be wet, moist, etc., would stay how they are. So that is the one thing. That switch only kind of flips one way.
Gotcha. That's interesting. Well, we're both like Berea's moist and Richmond is wet. I would see where it would kind of just balance out. It would just go back. I don't see why you would make it all dry again and make everybody go back and vote where the individual governments have decided that. So that's interesting. But one of the things that we had discussed and that I thought was really interesting is that it's been so long since a countywide vote has been taken, which is probably why everybody's like, well, I'm not sure how you do this because we have not done it since that time.
I remembered who told me that. It was Al Cross.
Oh,
Al Cross.
Al
Cross messaged me. Well, he didn't message me. He messaged the Facebook page, and he said, "You've got that wrong." And I thanked him, and I appreciated him for correcting
treasure.
it. So, anyway, yeah.
Thank you, Al. we can shout out Al Cross anytime on here. But that's so fascinating. I love that. But yeah, I can see where the confusion happens because no one's ever taken up this challenge and done it like successfully and until now in 2023.
Yeah.
Which is nuts. But
I moved here I started working here in 99 and moved here in, I think, April of 20. So I've been here over 22 years. And everything becomes normal. It becomes normal.
Right.
You just get used to it. And one of the problems with it becoming normal, and I talked to some folks at tourism about this, it's not normal to people who come visit. People who come from out of town, this is weird, and they don't understand it. So what they find is fewer people make trips here because they don't like that gray area. Well, Madison County suddenly becomes more appealing to tourism, or tourists, I should say, when they know with certainty that they're not going to, rent a cabin out somewhere and realize, oh, I've got to drive a half an hour to go get a 6-pack of beer. The other thing they found is stays were shorter. And there literally are cases of people who come here, are planning to stay here longer, and were cutting trips short once they got here and found out that our alcohol laws were wonky, and they were like, I want to go somewhere where things are more consistent. Madison, and we put a graphic out on this, but Madison was the last county touching Fayette that's not wet, and is still right now. We're hoping after May that won't be the case, but right now, Madison is the last holdout. I believe Jessamine was the last one before that, and that left just us. There's that old joke that people tell that in Kentucky it's Bourbon County is dry and Christian County is wet.
Right.
People still tell that joke. It's wrong.
Right.
Bourbon County's been wet for like 10 years or more. That joke hasn't been true in ages, but I think we sort of lost track of how far behind we were in Madison County.
Well, I know I had talked to some folks about it, and a lot of responses that I had gotten from proponents for and against it was some people were like, well, why change it? You can go to Richmond, or I live in Richmond, and there was this kind of apathy about it of
the half measure apathy. That's what I think of it as. So
it was like, well, you can just drive into Richmond, or if you're in Berea, it's not that big a deal, or I don't drink, or but if you really take it from an economic kind of standpoint and stuff, there are some pretty good reasons for having a conversation and putting this to a vote, having a conversation as a county, as citizens, of what we want our future to look like, versus our surrounding counties.
Where I live in the northern part of the county, the two closest restaurants to me to have a meal with a drink, I have to cross the county line. You can go over to Clark County and go to like Halls on the River, or you can go across into Fayette County to, the Cajun place or the barbecue place.
Proud Mary's.
Proud Mary, thank you. Proud Mary are the two closest places, except if you want to go through the guard shack at Boone's Trace, but not on Sunday. Not on Sunday. And that was actually Boone's Trace have been very frustrated because a lot of people golf on Sundays, but they can't have a beer with their round of golf. So there was a groundswell of support out of Boone's Trace. And that's one of the
passed. That's one of the ones that passed,
yes,
right?
That's
and then
one
they
of
were
the
told, no.
That's one of the precincts that held an election. It passed, and they thought, hot dog, we're good to go, and it got pulled back. That's actually the precinct where I live. And I've already voted in a wet dry election, and the day I voted, I already knew that it was no good. They were trying to preserve their legal challenges, so they went through with it, and I voted yes to be supportive, but at the same time I was already out collecting signatures on this. We filed in August, not knowing what our number would be come November.
Right,
we
I remember
didn't
that.
learn our number till November, and
What a gamble that was.
and it didn't really work out the way we hoped. Usually that general is one of the lower turnout general elections, but there were two constitutional amendments, and that drove higher voter turnout. So that actually pushed our number up a lot higher than what we thought it might be. We were thinking 5,000-ish, and we were closer to 8,000 that we needed. So it was a tougher ask than what we originally thought we had.
Again, who knew that getting this on a ballot was this challenging? And this is all volunteer. You're just doing this just.
I wish
the other business owners and individuals.
I keep saying I wish I could get paid what this job was worth because I did it for nothing.
Right.
I did it, to support my business, but it cost money. And it was a lot of work.
And this is not only that, but you and others that have been kind of involved in this push have paid money into getting the word out and getting the information out. But also, we still don't know if it'll pass.
I know.
In May, so.
I feel very confident, but the one thing that could sink it is a lack of voter turnout.
Right.
So people really need to get out May 16th. They really, whatever's going on, if it's raining like it is today, put on your slicker and go. Get your umbrella.
Yes, and I believe the deadline to register to vote, if you're not registered to vote, which you need to be to vote in the primary, to register to vote, the last day is April 17th. So if you are registered to vote by April 17th in Madison County, you can vote in the Madison County primary.
That's one date I didn't look up.
Yeah,
I'll take your word for
it's
it.
an important date. So if you just want to vote on the wet-dry option,
Yeah.
just go and get registered by April 17th so that you can then vote in the May primary, which is, a month later, May 17th? Or May 17th. Well, there you go. Well, thank you so much for keeping us informed about this, for doing all the groundwork.
I hope this is the last time I'm here to talk about this. I hope it's not after the election.
No.
we're
Well,
back.
I'll get you back. Good if it passes or if it doesn't.
I hope that's why I come back. Let me put it that way. I hope we come back to talk about what passage means, and I think we will. So I'd be happy to.
Excellent. Well, if you want to get some more information, you can go back and see the beginnings of this in a priority report. You can go to richmondregister.com to read some of the stories. Madison Alcohol Vote on Facebook, right? Madison County Alcohol Vote.
Yes, and also alcoholvote.com is still up. Our FAQs are still up. We adjusted them to explain how the election will proceed. We've taken off the signature link, and that was actually that was one of those Facebook suggestions. Someone on Facebook said, "Why don't you answer more questions on this website?" So that's why we built an FAQ there. So that was part of our evolution of how we presented things and stuff to make sure people understood what was going on.
Yeah, it's a great website. I think there's any question you could possibly try and throw out there.
Can you believe that site was available?
I know. when you bought it, I couldn't believe it, and it was so simple. And the fact that people could sign electronically too, that helped, because I know a lot of petitions. It's still just in businesses, and you're signing in ink, and there is no electronic sign because that also costs money.
that we couldn't have done it without the electronic signatures. I mean, can it be done without it? Yes,
Yeah.
but it's incredibly onerous. But I am not letting that. Even when this is over, I'm keeping that website for posterity.
Just enshrined it.
Yeah.
Legacy website. Well, thank you so much
Thank you.
for being here. Like I said, if you need any more information, go to any of those. We'll make Randy put some links down at the bottom or some websites down at the bottom for more information. And get out and vote and register to vote.
May 16th.
May 16th, last day to register to vote is April 17th. And thank you so much for watching this week's Priority Report. Join me next week with more news you need to know about.
The Priority Report is brought to you by Cumberland Valley National Bank. Trusted for banking, known for caring. Visit them at cvnb.com. Chenault Vineyards, a place to create beautiful experiences. Visit them online at chenaultvineyards.com. Shelter Insurance, Ashley Kovaleski. Give her a call, 859-624-0883, located 112 Big Hill Avenue in Richmond. Whitaker Bank, uniquely Kentucky. And kymedia.net. Download the Richmond Register News app on your favorite device or sign up and subscribe online at richmondregister.com.